I have a great webinar planned for you today. Hi, I'm Jim Thompson, and I want to welcome you to this webinar, Time Management is a Hoax. I am so glad you are here. I know that you want to be more productive with the time that you have each day, and this is the webinar for you. In the next 60 minutes or so, I am going to show you why I believe time management is a hoax. But just because I say time management is a hoax, it does not mean that you cannot become more productive with the time that you have. I am going to teach you a system that will allow you to become more productive with the time that you have each and every workday. Now, I don't want you to panic with regard to my having said I'm going to teach you a system, because this system is very, very simple. I know most lawyers, when I talk to them about implementing a system, they get this kind of glassy-eyed look and they think, oh no, now I am going to have to write out a bunch of things to do in a specific order and actually do them. Well, not with this system. After I show it to you, you're going to be literally blown away. However, just because I tell you that the system is simple, and it does not mean that you are not going to have to work to implement it. I think that when you see what this system is, you will understand just how productive you can become by using it. This webinar is basically divided into two parts. In the first part, I'm going to show you the system and how it can work for you to make your day more productive. In the second part, I'm going to share with you 7 practical tips that will make you more productive. If you just put 1 or 2 of these tips into practice, you will become more productive, and you just might make it home for dinner each and every night with your family. Once again, I would like to welcome you to this webinar. Let me tell you a little bit about why I am doing this webinar. I practiced law as a trial lawyer for over 26 years, and after retiring, I began working with lawyers, teaching and coaching them on how to get clients, specifically how to get more and better clients through referrals. Over the years, I have talked to lawyers all over the country. Some were brand new lawyers, and some were very seasoned lawyers, and some in various sized law firms, some solo practitioners, and in many different specialties. Not surprising, most of them would tell me they got most of their new business from referrals. But when I asked them what they were doing to get referrals, quite frankly, they could not give me a good answer. Many would tell me they simply had no plan on how to get referrals, and some were even very honest, saying that they hoped they would get referrals from clients and other lawyers. That is really something, isn't it? One of the most significant ways that you can grow a practice is referrals, and it is treated as an afterthought rather than a priority. I have written 2 books on the subject, one on how lawyers can get referrals from their clients, and the other on how they could get more referrals from other attorneys. I've been asked why I wrote these 2 books, and quite frankly, attorneys are lucky in that they can get referrals from both clients and other attorneys. While there are some similarities, there are 2 very distinct methods to get referrals from clients and from attorneys. I wonder how many of you have thought about there being 2 separate and distinct methods to be utilized in getting referrals from both clients and other attorneys. Do you think it was a challenge to convince attorneys that they actually have the time to work on getting referrals? Yes, it was, and I am sure that some of you are thinking to yourself, you just don't have the time to work on getting referrals to build your practice. The truth is, you do have the time if you learn to use your time more productively, and that is the purpose of this webinar. I want to share with you the system I have developed over the years from both my experience and learning from the masters on time and productivity. This is a very simple system, But just because I say it is simple, it does not mean that you will not have to work at it each and every day. This is the system that I am going to share with you in this webinar. Now, I want to be very transparent. One of the reasons I also wanted to present this webinar at this time is because I'm about to launch an important new program. So before anyone will dismiss this program because you think you may not have the time, hopefully this webinar will show you how you can get 1 or more hours a day so that you can successfully participate in this program that I will be launching in a couple of weeks. You will be getting emails shortly describing the program and how it will be delivered, and that the essentials of the program will become more clear to you. I realized at this point in my career I needed to slow down and begin looking for ways that I can reach as many lawyers as possible and to be effective without having to be physically present. I searched for and I found a fantastic new platform on which to deliver this program. You will be able to take it and learn from the program at your convenience, and better yet, for you, the platform will allow me to deliver this at a very low cost. I want to encourage you to remain on this webinar to the end because I have a couple of offers that I want to share with you. One of them will be how you can participate in this new program, as well as being able to get the first 2 lessons completely complimentary so that you can see how the program works, test it out, and decide whether or not the program is for you. Additionally, one of the most important things that I have found that works is to have an accountability partner, someone who will hold you accountable for what you say you are going to do, and someone that you can hold accountable. Because I believe so strongly in having an accountability partner, if you commit to having a partner that will do the program with you, I will have a very special offer. Now, let's get to the rest of the webinar. I will bet that some of you are wondering, really, what does this slide depict? And before I started studying time, I wouldn't have had the slightest clue. But basically what it is the number of minutes each of us have every single day. None of us have any more, none of us have any less. This is it for the day. So what is the problem? The problem is simply this. As attorneys, we've got all these things that must get done during the day. And you can take all these post-it notes and take a look at them, but this is the problem. All the things that have to get done in our workday. In addition to all those items, those task items on the post-it notes, we also have the problem of juggling emails, juggling phone calls, and all the other things that go on during our day that we have to fit in and get done. Obviously, we know what the problem is. The question then is, how do we solve this problem? Well, I know that you have seen this slide come up, and it talks about the solution. So, Jim, you're going to give us the solution to all our time problems, right? I wish that were true. I wish that I could give you this silver bullet that would solve all of your time problems. But unfortunately, there is no silver bullet. And the one thing that you really must do if you want to become more productive with your time is to change your time mindset. And we're going to talk about that. If you are really serious about changing your time productivity mindset, then you really need to think about planning and what you're doing as far as planning your week in advance and then your days in advance. This is the starting point of any mindset change. Okay, having said that you need to have a plan, just where do you begin? We have, all these items out there that we have to get done. So how do we take all those items and get our arms around them and plan our day and plan our week? Here is the missing piece, and that is setting priorities. We have all these things that we must get done during the day or during the week, but unless we sit down and actually prioritize what is important and what must get done, then our time priority management system will never be complete. I know many of you are looking at this slide and thinking to yourself, what are you talking about? There are only three priorities. That's right. There are only three priorities that you need to be aware of. And once you're aware of these three priorities, everything will begin to fall in place. These are the only three priorities that you really need to be concerned about, and I'm going to go in depth on each of those in just a minute. But I know some of you out there are going to say, well, yeah, I get that, but I also have other priorities in my life. Well, yes, you may have other priorities in your life, but these are the three most important ones that you're really going to have to concentrate on if you want to be more productive in your practice. The first priority that you need to be aware of is doing those things which can get you in trouble if you do not timely complete them. Now, one of the best examples of this, obviously, is having to go before a judge who may not be very pleased with you if you don't have that order done or that brief done or whatever. Now, that's for trial lawyers, but this also applies to any other lawyer an estate planning lawyer. If you don't get that estate plan done when the client's coming in tomorrow, you're going to get in trouble. If you don't have the corporate documents ready for that client that's coming in tomorrow, those are the things that are going to get you in trouble, that if you don't timely complete them, then you are going to really get in trouble, whether it's from a judge or from a client. The second priority is money. And obviously, in order to stay in practice, you need to be making money. And I'm going to divide this into two separate and distinct areas where you need to be thinking in terms of money so that your practice can stay viable and that you will continue in the practice of law. When I talk about money, I'm really talking, or I want to break it down into two areas. The first one is making sure that you bill your clients on time so that you can get them paying on a regular basis. Obviously, you have bills coming due which you have to pay, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is if your clients are paying you on a regular basis. You would be surprised at how many attorneys I talk to who they have no system, if you will, for getting bills out. And one of the suggestions I would make is that you bill your clients, and again, depending on the type of practice, but you bill your clients twice a month on the 15th and the 30th. Because when you separate those bills out, you're basically, it's not a sticker shock, if you will, at the end of the month or the first of the month, and the client gets a bill for $3,000 that they might not be expecting. If you bill $1,500 on the 15th and then the other $1,500, you're more likely to get paid. And the other thing is, if you start out with a client and you bill them on the 15th of the month and you bill them $1,500 and it takes a while to get paid, that may be a pretty good indication that maybe that client's not going to pay you on a regular basis. The other component of the money phrase, if you will, is marketing. If you are not continually marketing, pretty soon you are going to find yourself without any clients and without any money coming in. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole dissertation of what you need to do as far as marketing and this type of thing, because that's really for a webinar of another day. But I want to make sure that you understand just how important your marketing component is and that you make a regularly designated time to do marketing. And it should be at, and again, depending on how long you've been in practice and the number of clients and everything you have, but even if you've been in practice for quite a while, you should be marketing at least an hour a day. And the newer lawyers, sometimes you could be marketing as much as 3 or 4 hours a day because you don't have the work to do. You've got the time, so go ahead and market and use your time wisely there. So again, the two components of money are basically the billing, getting the bills out, and the second one is doing the marketing. The third priority is your family or things that happen in your personal life. And again, these are things that are important that you need to make specific time for throughout your business day. For instance, like I said, your daughter may have a piano recital at her school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or she may be graduating from kindergarten, something that comes up on a very important basis, not just the normal family things that you need to do, but these special moments with your family. This is what I'm talking about here. And you need to put them in your calendar and make time for them. And I'm going to show you how you can do all three of these and fit them into your calendar. Okay, here it comes, the system. I know you have been waiting with bated breath to find out exactly what I am going to tell you about this system that is so very, very simple. Well, in the next 10 minutes or so, I am going to share with you exactly what this system is. So please pay very close attention because what I'm about to say may make or break you as far as being more productive with your time is concerned. There are only two tools that you will be using in this system. The first tool in your system is a to-do list, but this is not going to be your ordinary to-do list. This is the second tool that you will be using in your system, an appointment book, calendar, or whatever you want to call it. But basically, again, when you see how this works, this is not your ordinary appointment calendar. I need to stop here for a minute to make something perfectly clear, and that is this. I am showing you this to-do list and appointment calendar merely for purposes of illustration. I know that many of you use different systems to keep track of these items and also to keep track of your appointments. These are all perfectly fine if they are working for you. Obviously, I do not want to change anything. What I want to get across is to get you thinking, what is the basis of this system, not the specific tools that you use in your particular system. Any to-do list or appointment book will work. The key, as you will discover, is how you will use them. Again, I am simply using this to-do list and appointment book for purposes of illustration. So keep that in mind as we go forward. Think about how what you are presently doing can fit into the system I will be teaching. Again, for purposes of illustration, I have taken one page out of the appointment book showing a Monday and a Tuesday. And again, this is the to-do list, and basically I have filled it in for purposes of illustration. I realize you probably can't see what I've written there, and that basically is not important. The important thing is how we're going to combine the to-do list and your appointment book in this system. What I've done here with the to-do list and from a previous slide is kind of show you how I work it as far as the three priority items that I mentioned that you should only be concerned with. Now, obviously, the first one I use a T for those things that I'll get in trouble for if I don't get them done. The M is for the money items such as billing a client, that might be on my to-do list, or it might be having lunch with a client because I want to develop a better relationship with that client, or a lunch with a lawyer or whatever, again, to develop a relationship which translates into referrals and money. And then you have the F and the /P slots. Now, I'm going to leave it totally up to you as to what you characterize each of the items on your to-do list is. But I want you to make sure that you are only going to use the 3 priorities. And I know that some of you will have the tendency to say, well, yeah, but I'm a little different than you, Jim, and I have other things. So I'm going to add an X priority and a Y priority. And if you catch yourself doing this, please stop. Just work with these 3 priority items. And again, you're going to see how that all comes to being and keeps you productive during the day. I know that many lawyers will use their to-do list in many different ways, and they really seldom ever think about prioritizing the items the way I've just talked about. What many lawyers and other people do is basically take a to-do list and start scratching off items that they get done. And this is great. It makes you have a great feeling of accomplishment as to what you've crossed off your to-do list. But the problem is you probably, and I say you collectively because I've done this too, scratch off those that are the easiest things to do, and you don't really think about the items in any type of priority. Again, we add things to our to-do list because we're really afraid we're going to forget something, and that's fine. But as long as you prioritize something when you add it to your to-do list, make sure that when you add it, that you prioritize it right then and there. Again, that priority might change later, but think about, okay, if I'm adding something to this list, what priority, what of the 3 priorities is it, and mark it so that you know that when you go to the next step, which I'll share with you in just a minute, you've already prioritized things and you don't have to go back and think about them. Okay, now I'm going to show you how you're going to use your to-do list along with your appointment book or your appointment schedule. And again, I know that you can't see and I filled in just to give you some idea what it'll look like, but you can't probably see what's there for that Monday and Tuesday. But one of the things I would suggest that you do is each day you make a specific time to do your marketing. It could be from 8 to 9 each day, or from 4 to 5 or whatever. But if you put it in your appointment book like that, you will probably, for the most part, get it done. Oh, I know there's going to be some days that everything, like I've said before, kind of goes crazy and you won't really get to it. But if it's there as an appointment, then you're more than likely to get it done than just not having it in there at all. A couple other things real quick. I'm going to show you about phone calls and answering emails in the tips section that I'm going to do in a little bit, so I'm not covering those. But basically what this calendar shows and the to-do list is I've taken the T items and I've looked at them and I go, okay, this is a T item. When do I need to fit it in? Now, for instance, if it is a brief that needs to be due on Wednesday, when do I need to put it into my schedule on Monday? Do I need to do research? How long is it going to take me? Maybe I've already done the research and all I have to do is set an hour aside to finally put it together. And I may even have to put an hour aside on Tuesday to review it to make sure it's all fine, that the judge is going to like it, et cetera, or closing or whatever it happens to be. But what I've done then is taken the T items and taken those items on my to-do list with T items, and I've inserted them somewhere in my Monday schedule, and maybe even gone over to Tuesday, and maybe even a T item might be on my to-do list, but it might be something that will get me in trouble if I don't do it by Friday. So now I can move that list or that item over to Wednesday. So the key here is, and the bottom line in this, everything I've been talking about, is making an appointment with yourself. You are taking your to-do list and the things that are important that you need to get done and making them, or rather putting them in your appointment book and making an appointment with yourself so that you can take a look at what your week looks like and then go forward and see where you have open slots for things, see what you need to get done, etc. But once you put it into your book, then the chances are you're going to end up doing it. Again, the important point that I'm trying to get across is that you have started a system, you've developed a system here, and what you're going to do, uh, weekly. And again, what I would suggest is that you go over your to-do list for, say, the coming week of things that you have to get done on the Friday. Take a little bit of time on Friday afternoon, but at the very latest, do it on a Sunday evening and sit down and make your plans then. Do not wait until you get to the office Monday morning and say, okay, I'm going to start figuring out what I'm going to be doing. These slots, if you will, these appointments with yourself have to be done in advance. You cannot really do them on the fly. And so again, I can't emphasize enough, and I probably said it more than enough, but make appointments with yourself if you want to be more productive. I hope that you're not going to get sick of me saying this, but once again, this is the key to the entire system. It is the key to everything we've talked about, and that is simply making an appointment with yourself to get things done. Once you make that appointment, it is in your appointment book. Obviously, there may be things that you have to change as you go along, but at least you've written it into your book once, and it's there, and if you see it, you will more than likely get it done. I know that I've covered an awful lot in this webinar very quickly. So let me just take a little bit of time to recap some of the high points of what we've talked about. There are only three priorities that you need to be worried about. The three priorities then are those things that can get you in trouble if you don't timely complete them, money, and your family or personal responsibilities. There are only two tools that you will need to be using in this system. Now, as I mentioned before, your tools might be a little different than the ones I've shown you, but again, they're only two tools, and if you stick with the two tools and keep it very simple, then I believe you'll succeed with this system. And one of the things I've learned a long time ago is to keep things as simple as possible, because if they're simple, people will do them. If they're complex, they won't get done. And again, these simple tools are your to-do list and basically your weekly calendar. And again, whichever way you want to do this is perfectly fine as long as you're doing it. All right, I know I couldn't help myself but to say this one more time. The most important takeaway from this entire webinar is make an appointment with yourself to get those priority items done. As this slide says, ideas, or what we've talked about, really they don't bring success. Taking action does. And I will hope that this has inspired you to start thinking about what you need to do to make your days more productive, and that you will begin to take action on what I have just shown you. Now, I know that I went rather quickly on this, so what I'm going to do is make the section that we talked about where just the system available to you without all the other things that you have to go back and look at it, if that will help you. So in the next day or so, I will make that section available to you so that you can go back and look at it, just try it, see what works for you. And again, some things will work, some things won't. This is just an illustration to get you doing the two things, but the most important thing is that I want you to begin to think about making an appointment with yourself. And if you think in those terms, and if you think in the three priorities that are necessary to basically get you more productive time during the day, then I think that you're going to be well on your way to making the best use of your time. I mentioned that the second part of this webinar I was going to devote to giving you some tips so that you can become more productive. And again, I'm going to go through these rather fast, but some of them you will look at right away and say, yes, that's me. This is what I can do to improve myself or how I can change things. And others, they may or may not be applicable to you. But let's go through these. There's about 7 of them. Obviously, there's a bunch more, but I really just only have time for about 7 to share with you right now. And this is the guy we're always looking for, the time bandit, that crook that steals all our valuable time. So if some way we can corner him and keep him away from our productive day, we're going to be so much better off. One more thing, I just thought it would be fun to throw this little pop quiz at you. And this is something, again, that totally blew me away when I started studying this. And that is, if you're doing something and you are interrupted in the middle of it, and once you get going back to doing it again, how long does it take you to get back to where you were before you were interrupted? Studies have shown that it takes about 20 minutes to get back to where you were before you were interrupted. This, of course, is on average. So if you're interrupted, say, every 20 minutes, you'll end up the day having gotten nothing productive done. So what do we need to do? We need to stop those interruptions, and hopefully the next few things I'm going to share with you will help you on that. What I'm trying to convey here is, again, going back to interruptions and how much time is really wasted with interruptions. When you're doing a project, when you've got something that you've got to get done, make sure that the people in your office know that if your door is closed, that means you are not to be disturbed. And you're still going to get people that'll come in, open a door, and say, hey, how you doing? How was the ball game? But you got to really stress, when my door is closed, I don't want any interruptions. And maybe you have to go as far as putting a do not disturb, really don't disturb. I mean it. Or, do not disturb under penalty of death. Because, again, when you are interrupted, it could take you as long as 20 to 25 minutes to get back to what you're doing. And just think of how much time that wastes each and every day. Well, I think this about says it all. We love the phones and we hate them. Probably one of the biggest interruptions we have is the telephone. And, we have to answer the phone. We have to make our phone calls and this type of thing. But we, as I mentioned earlier, we need to be consistent as to when we are going to return our phone calls or call people. The same thing, you got to tell your secretary, I am not to be interrupted. And I know a lot of you out there are going, well, if I don't answer the phone, the client's going to get upset with me and this type of thing. And one of the things that, and I've got this from probably 5 or 6 different attorneys that are very well, very, very knowledgeable, if you will, in the time management. Sorry, I said time management again, but that's okay. You know what I'm talking about. But what they talk about is, if you let your clients know when you're going to talk to them or when you're going to be available, and you let them know in the sense of, John, these are the times that I'm available to return phone calls, and I will call you at such and such time during the day when I return my phone calls. And the reason for this is I'm working on something and I got my total attention on that particular client matter, just the same as when I'm working on something for you. I want to have my total attention on your matter. And I think if you put it that way to a client, they're certainly going to understand that. They're going to want your full attention on their matter and not be interrupted by phone calls from other clients while you're working and giving your total attention to what needs to be done on their particular matter. Again, these are, with the telephone, probably the biggest time interruptions that we have. You know, the you've got mail, we don't have that anymore. Some of us may get that, but it's the Bing, and we got to feel like we got to go take a look at our email right then and there. And how much time does that waste? Even if you say to yourself, "Oh, I'm just going to look at this one quick email and then I'm going to get back to work." Remember, if you're doing something and you're interrupted by virtue of getting an email, how long is it going to take you to get back to where you were before you were interrupted? With email, set a specific time during the day, maybe twice a day, and sometimes maybe even 3 times a day. It depends on you. But set a specific time where you are going to look at your email and return emails if you have to, or answer emails if you will. But again, don't be someone that every time you hear that Bing, you've got to take a look and see who's sent you this great, wonderful email that's going to make you $1 million. Think about this. Every time you answer an email, how much time did it actually take you to do that? Oh, it might take you 3 minutes to answer an email, but how much time did it really take you if it's an interruption from something you were doing before? Now, if you specifically set forth times when you're going to answer emails, then fine. You're not being interrupted because this is the time that you're doing specific things. So I know it's difficult. It's difficult for me. I don't get as many emails as probably most of you do, but I guarantee you, sometimes I'll have, in the morning before I even looked at my email, I'll have 25 emails in my email box, and they just keep coming throughout the day. And I know you guys as practicing attorneys have a heck of a lot more than that. And it's going to be something that's going to take a lot of discipline, but trust me, this is probably one of your biggest time wasters for most attorneys. No, I'm not talking about taking a vacation. What I'm talking about here is sometimes you just have to get away from your office. There's so much going on that you really can't concentrate and you've got to get things done. Take a look at where you might be able to go. The public library, if there's one in your town or near you, might be a great place to go. You might talk to one of your friends who has a law office and has a conference room or something of that nature that you could use. Now, I'm not saying you do this all the time, but when you have those specific projects, those specific things that need to get done, and you have to give your total concentration, just think about where you can go and getting away and doing the project without any interruptions. I'm not sure where I should have put the slide. Maybe it should have been up a little bit higher on the list of things to keep you from wasting time. But I have seen, and I'll tell on myself. When I was practicing law, I was probably in the bottom of that pile. Quite frankly, I just had this. I had to have the stuff all around me so that I felt like if I didn't have it there, I'd be losing something and this type of thing. But if you're unorganized, think how long it takes you to say find a file, find a piece of paper, find a note, instead of being able to grab that file and if you're organized in a minute, it may take you 10 minutes to find that file. It may take your secretary to come into your office and take 10 or 15 minutes to find a file. I will say this, most attorneys that I've been in their office, especially litigation attorneys, while it's not quite as bad as this picture, there are files and litigation packets all over the place, and they are totally disorganized. Although they may say they're organized, they are not. So if you need help in getting organized, let me know. I can put you in touch with some folks that's all they do is get people organized. And trust me, it works. Now, I don't want you to think that I have kind of flipped out and I want you to go to the gym and start working out. But here is the thing. In the programs that I teach with regard to getting more and better referrals, I often suggest that you get a partner. And the reason for this is accountability. If you have someone that is holding you accountable, then you're probably going to get a lot more accomplished. In other words, if you set out to do some of these things that we have talked about with regard to becoming more productive, and you get a partner to help you, and the partner is also working with you, then both of you are going to accomplish a lot more. Just think about it this way. You will not only be helping yourself, but you will be sharing this information with another lawyer, and isn't that what it is all about? Helping each other to grow. The way to get started is simply for me to quit talking and for you to begin doing. I've covered an awful lot in this webinar, and somebody will say, well, Jim, when is the best time to start? Well, the Chinese proverb probably gives us the best answer. And the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. When is the second best time? Right now. So the best time for you to start your being more productive, using your time wisely to become more productive, maybe 10 years ago, but you didn't do it. So when is the second best time? Right now. So starting when this webinar ends, think about what you've learned and what I've talked about, and what can you immediately begin to do to make you more productive. I want to thank you for attending this webinar, and I hope that you have found some very useful information and that you will think about putting some of the things into practice that we talked about, specifically making an appointment with yourself to become more productive during the day. Now, I want to introduce you to Bentley. Bentley is a local Chicago lawyer who has joined our staff at a significant salary, I might add, and Bentley has agreed to provide weekly comments on the practice of law. Now, these can be just about anything having to do with the practice of law, but people who have already been introduced to Bentley have really enjoyed his insight, his comments, and some of the information that he has passed on. So I hope that you will enjoy Bentley on a weekly basis. Now, if you have any questions or comments about this webinar or time management or not time management, time productivity, please feel free to send me an email and I will try to answer every one that I get. Thanks again, and I look forward to working with you in the future.